How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of Table Zero, the new 100% Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitive TCG podcast show, whatever you want to call it. I'm joined here by my beautiful co-host, Fi. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the crowd?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Well, I guess welcome to Table Zero. I'm Fi. I'm like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Video essay maker, I guess. But normally I do these feature match reviews where I look through a lot of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I like doing some storytelling. I like hyping up some of the best players in the game. And I think I can do a lot more here as well with Mr. Galzo on the other end.
Let's go. I'm extremely excited. Of course, make sure to check out Fi's channel when you're finished watching the episode. Of course, head over to his channel in the description below. We're going to be trying to do this as much as we can when we have good stories to tell and good things to talk about. We have a lot of things to go through today, but first of all, we are in the intro part. Do you want to tell the folks at home what this show is actually about?
Yeah, so I think myself and Galzo really want to highlight what's good in like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Not just like, I mean, again, yes, the metagame and what is happening within Yu-Gi-Oh! But also, getting yourself prepared for the format with that, as well as talking about some of the best players, best decks, good cards, and just Yu-Gi-Oh! In general.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be talking about, we are really invested into the game, besides being financially invested, of course, like everybody else. We live and breathe Yu-Gi-Oh! Most of the time. So we definitely want to give out our takes on what's current, what's happening. I think Fi's content specifically really inspired me to talk more, or even learn to talk about competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! A little bit better. So I think it's really important as a community as well, and obviously we like yapping about Yu-Gi-Oh! So this is we're just gonna yap. Before we go into our first topic, I do want to take a fraction just to discuss today's event. Have you seen the new? This is not like an anime show at all, but we have to mention this because people are extremely excited. Your 30-second take on this.
It's the best piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! Media released in the last 5 years. I just gotta say, it's really hype. It makes me just really excited to play this card game. Seeing, what is it called? The Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Animation Chronicle or something like that?
The Chronicles.
It's a banger.
Yeah, 100% a banger. It was actually amazing to see. My only thing that I discussed it over, I was discussing this earlier on the stream. Obviously, exactly like you said, best Yu-Gi-Oh! Media released. I don't know if in the last 5 years, I think ever, personally, because this is, when we were kids, the things that they released before were more like suited for, children. I've been saying for a long time that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game should approach its audience on eye level, look at the audience, understand who they actually are, and who they are is mostly adults. And adults want adult content, not like that adult content, but grown-up content. Even you could argue, but even like just be they need to understand like who's actually playing the card game, who's actually buying the cards, and cater to them. And I think the cards themselves have more to tell than the fictional protagonists that we've had up until today. But enough about that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I want to cap off with like one thing. Yeah. I mean, that is the first time I have ever felt. I have a weird journey in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's the first time I've ever felt like actually marketed to in this game, because I never grew up. Again, I'm a youngin'. I never grew up like watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Or anything like that. I just got into Yu-Gi-Oh! By playing other trading card games. So this is like the first piece of like Konami media that actually got me like feeling very invested in the game.
Yeah. And we got the Albaz stuff, which I'm extremely biased, but it's probably the best story that's ever been told in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. I don't think anybody is gonna argue too much about that. The story is like super rich and full, and there's a lot to tell. And I think maybe it's time to cater to the actual audience of the game and maybe even try to bring in a new audience with an anime that doesn't have to do with playing the card game, because it's hard on its own. Bring the people in with beautiful animation, storytelling, and keep them in by a fun card game that everybody loves.
Yeah, I think we could talk about this for ages, to be honest, like what we want about this, but maybe not in the spirit of what we have going on for through the rest of the show. But I mean, probably some of the best news that or best thing to come out of Konami. You said like maybe ever. I was just saying the last 5 years just to be safe, because, well, look, man, I didn't know what happened in the last 5 years, so I was just being safe.
I don't know about the last 5 years, but I know about this year. And this year is the year of fire. Starting probably a bit before Age of Overlord even, we got hints of fire strategy, new fire cards, new fire support. Especially we saw that on the OCG side, because we can have like a window to the future through the OCG releases. And now we are sort of like at the highlight of the year of fire. Now we are a few days away from the Phantom Nightmare release, where the whole thing kind of comes together with Snake Eye Fire King, that right now is looking like the best deck in the OCG, and possibly even in the TCG in the near future. Let's talk fire. What do we got?
Yeah, so I mean, the question is this like a tier 0 format? Is this the only viable deck you could play? Because like when you're preparing for an event, I've had to ask myself the question when I like try to come up with some sort of copium deck. It's like, why am I not just playing? You have to make an argument to why you're playing this deck over, not playing fire, because objectively you have the best tools in the game at your disposal. That's the question I'm asking. So is it tier 0 in your eyes, Galzo? I don't really think so, but what's your take?
This is actually one of the only notes that I wrote about. Like, it's funny that you mention it. We didn't plan this in advance, but the main note I wrote for myself was, I don't think it's tier 0, and I don't even think it's close to tier 0. I think that the last Forbidden and Limited lists, the couple of last ones, maybe the last one was like a really big and impactful one that kind of like, I felt like it really flattened the game out. Took away like the top like very high powered cards like the shufflers and a Zol that was really toxic for years, kind of toned everything down while keeping other things in check as well. They kept a Rizard in the ban list. Of course, there are arguments to be made about like other cards that are obviously still toxic, still legal, but in general, I felt after this ban list, it's an open field. You can play whatever you want. And it was actually proven, because if you look at tournament breakdowns today, you'll see a pie chart that actually just looks like a pizza, right? It just looks like a pizza. It's not even a pie anymore. Because
it's a pizza with a lot of very thin slices, Galzo.
It's like 2 big slices and then some slices for the kids towards the end. But I think right now, so many decks are viable at the moment, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment, that I think Fire King, what I do have to say about the deck is the deck has an amazing toolbox. It is one of the strongest and most explosive decks that I've ever played. Like, when I'm playing this deck, sometimes I have to catch myself and say, like, is this actually really happening right now? Like, am I playing through Diddy Crow and Valor and Nib and ending on the same board? Because this is what you can do that sometimes, because the engine is just so powerful. So I think it's a very unique deck that I think is extremely powerful. I think it is also a pretty technical deck as well. It's not a super straightforward deck, because puking out monsters on the board doesn't really have any value, especially if you're playing against the mirror match. I think it's super technical. So I don't think it's a tier 0 deck. I don't necessarily think it's close to tier 0. I think it's going to be an obvious tier 1. But I also think
Galzo, huge
that there are
congratulations.
so many other competitors still viable to take this deck down. And you might be thinking about like the obvious suspects, but things like Fluandreeze and Kashtira are still like viable. Things like Labyrinth, things like Sprite, things we haven't talked about in months, they're still in the game. They can still take down Fire King. So This is what I think about Fire King Snake Eye specifically.
There's like a bunch of talk about like what like set or card design has been like for Yu-Gi-Oh in the past, like since Pote, since Power of the Elements. There hasn't been a lot of just like negate turbo boards, except for Vanadium. But you know, there isn't a lot of that in Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment, and that's why I think it makes for like a pretty like it. Look, it's an unhealthy amount of resources that one normal summon of Snake Eye Ash gets you. But all things said, it's still, you still have the feeling that you can play through these fields. They're not like again completely unbreakable fields, and also what I also like is that there is no like silver bullet to beat these decks except for Dimension Shifter. But even then, though, Dimension Shifter decks are not going to OTK you, so, you know, you can't, I mean, you'll skip their turn for sure, but that means you're just going to get in a back-and-forth game with the Shifter deck, as they can easily get themselves established by just discarding Dimension Shifter. So I think it's, like, one of the healthier formats that we've been in, and we'll, I guess, get into it as we yap about all the decks that might be viable versus Fire King, but the lack of negates makes it, like, feel very healthy in my opinion.
Yeah, I think once you add on Omni Negates, even though there will be builds, currently there are builds with things like Baron even, you know, Flameberg, Formula Synchron, you can make an Omni Negate. You can also make Epilosa really consistently.
You can make Savage.
You can make Savage, you can make Epilosa, which are not like necessarily Omni Negates like Savage is. Apo for 3, against the mirror especially, it could just be game on the Apo itself.
Yeah.
So there's obviously really powerful things, but I also feel, as you mentioned, while catching myself and saying like, whoa, this deck is crazy, it also feels really fair and balanced to go up against, because it feels like all the cards are on the table. You take a look at the graveyard, sometimes you know what's in the hand, you look at the field, and you can manage to understand like how to actually play and break this board instead of getting omnied after omnied after omni like against like Vanadium or something, and you just can't play. You can play.
Yeah,
And one last thing, I think this is what people liked about Tier Limits format, that even though it was a really powerful deck, you were still able to try to break the board because nothing actually stopped you, right? From trying.
Yeah, it just feels like even though like you in like a Fire King or like a just Snake Eyes mirror match, even if you have like a really weak-ish hand, to be honest, like obviously if you open 6 cards of Engine versus like a full comboed board, it's going to be very difficult to break through something like an Appaloosa, or like some of the Jet Synchron boards that I've seen have like Baron, IP and SV, Princess, and maybe a few hand traps. Like obviously that'll be difficult, but even if you open like very like bad hands, quote unquote, it feels like you still have the opportunity to actually attempt to play and maybe even score an outplay in a lot of situations. So I think this is why definitely a healthy format for the Year of Fire, which actually makes me really excited to play the game, besides the price point, of course.
Yeah, the price point is hard, but we are also here to talk about the other decks, and we're going to move on to the next segment, the format snapshot, where we talk about what else is happening. And we're recording this about a week away from the Phantom Nightmare release, about an hour away from Fi going to the sneak peek. So it's imminent.
Yeah.
It's coming. But what do we think about the rest of the format? If we look at Fire King Snake Eye as the deck to beat, and I think it should be respected as such, what are other strategies that could be in play for the rest of the format?
So I think one of the coolest things about this particular like post-Phantom Nightmare format is that it has been being tested for at least like the last month. There has actually gone through multiple different format shifts before the cards have even released. So it can change. This can always be changing, ever present.
Galzo, huge congratulations.
Believe it or not, Galzo. I might be able to take the stand. Like, what other decks are viable? I mean, Labyrinth obviously, you know, stands out. There are a ton of new strategies that are also coming out. and God forbid branded Despia.
I wanted you to bring it up because I don't want to be that guy, right? I don't want to be that guy. You know, I am the branded guy, right? But it's not going to be befitting if I just sit here and tell you all about why branded is good. And I think there is merit to that.
Someone else to say it.
Yes, and this is why we created the show, so I can bring in someone else to tell you exactly. No, I do want you to take this maybe and maybe talk a little bit about why branded. First of all, seeing success in the OCG right now is probably one of the only competitors, even though it's hit to the ground. One branded fusion, one opening, it is severely hit, but it's still putting up a fight against Fire King. Why branded specifically?
Well, currently there's a big lack of just okay, let's start with this. You can play Super Polymerization, which is a pretty good card right now. And it's like very strong. Just making Mud Dragon into a lot of these fields with Super Polymerization is a really strong card. People are already trying to find ways to play around it. That's one thing. But just engine versus engine. If you are going second into a Fire King Snake Eye field, one branded fusion can actually play through the entirety of the board if they do not have an Ash Blossom. So you basically put them on have it, or we're going to have a very long back and forth game just because branded fusion introduces so many resources with just one card. And that makes it so that, you all of a sudden equalize the amount of resources that both decks have just off of one singular card. They normal summon Snake Eye Ash during their turn, you activate Branded Fusion, and now we're in a back and forth game where basically the resources are equalized.
Yeah, I think that branded, something that it has going for it, besides being, I think the Ash Blossom could be, of course, something that stops the deck to some extent. I think branded at this day and age, if you build it correctly, it doesn't necessarily, you will sometimes lose to an Ash Blossom on original Sinful Spoils also, it happens. Branded is definitely the strongest card in the deck by far because of how ridiculous it is as a card, right? As you mentioned, the amount of resources it introduces by one card activation. But I think something else that you didn't mention about branded is that branded has a few things going for it that not a lot of decks have, is that, first of all, they have a lot of varied removal that doesn't destroy cards. So, of course, we're talking about either Mirror Jade, we're talking about Albaz, which on its own, the effect, if you manage to resolve it, because half of the deck is, either Lynx or the Fire King monsters, which can all go up into Rindbrum. Rindbrum is an additional negate that checks either the IP or the princess in the graveyard. So automatically you took out a body, you didn't destroy it, but you also put up a negate because their power cards are link monsters. And lastly, just protection from being destroyed with things like branded opening, which is just a trifecta of things that just go up really well against that matchup. Super Poly, I think, is probably going to be not exclusive to branded because,
of course,
it's just a super powerful card, right? Makes sense. But this is why we think that branded is definitely one of the contenders. And I think this, I always say this about every new format. I'm like, this is where branded fusion gets hit. Maybe, maybe. I always say that, but it hasn't happened until now. I do want to talk about another deck that could be rising up in the format. What are we thinking about Rescue Ace? I think Rescue Ace is, we started the Year of Fire in January with amazing defenders in January 2023. We started with the Extinguishers, right? We started with Rescue Ace releasing. It got support later on in the year, Cyberstorm Access and following that as well. And now people are, they've played Rescue Ace for a while. Airlifted got hit on the Forbidden Limited list. But it seems like to me that the Rescue Ace matchup for Fire King can also be a little bit problematic.
I have my opinions.
Shoot.
I'll fire off about Rescue Ace versus Fire King, and that is, I don't think Rescue Ace is like, yes, it still has the same power level, but it just has an inherent flaw with the deck, and that is it doesn't have enough starters to where it can really struggle through multiple hand traps. Like again, Ash Imperm, that deck is passing like 99% of the time. It's and again, it's passing to like an Imperm, unless they like Imperm on Diabell Star, unless they've hard opened a very specific combination of cards. Like you have like a normal summon Hydrant, maybe Emergency, but it struggles to play through multiple hand traps. And I don't really want to play a deck in a very long event.
Galzo,
if I
huge
run into people who are running
congratulations.
15 hand traps and I'm playing Rescue Ace, and boom, Ash Imperm, and I lose when going first in like game 1, that just feels awful to have in a deck, and I really wouldn't want to bring that in a long form tournament. But that's just my opinion. Of course, the deck still can set 4, and in this kind, again, against Fire King, yeah, they ain't breaking that.
I think that with cards like Contain and Extinguish specifically, with the combination of the additional Hydrant effect, it immediately makes it a lot better against the Snake Eyes starters, because you can either not link them away, and then you kind of get stuck. You can't activate the Ash effect. You can link away the Populace. You can activate the Populace effect in Graveyard to place itself in the Spell and Trap zone. Obviously, going first uninterrupted, as you mentioned, Ash Imperm kills a lot of decks, not only Rescue Ace, but Rescue Ace now has fewer starters. We've seen Rescue Ace dabble with a Snake Eye engine as well, because naturally now, when you have OG and you have Populace, you will probably incorporate that because it's just more ways to summon Hydrant, right? So it's actually kind of like fake added consistency because you can get to it in multiple ways, right? You want to resolve that OG, and in Fire King you just resolve it for Ponix. Here you resolve it for Hydrant. You might be able to play a little bit better through the combo. So Rescue Ace is one deck that I wanted to talk about. Do you have any other interesting picks for the format snapshot?
It really depends on how things play out, because again, I talked about how like the format in general is just evolving, even though the cards haven't even been released. Initially, the whole thought process, like, oh, we gotta play around Droll and Lockbird, best card of the format, non-negotiable, quoting a Mono Bluetron, aka MBT. But I don't think that's like the case anymore. Obviously, it's been shown that Snake Eye Ash just plays through a Droll and Lockbird all on its own. Or at least puts up a sizable field through Droll and Lockbird. But the other, so like when you have Droll like moving in and out of the format, certain decks become available, and I think one of those is the Voiceless Voice strategy. If people start pivoting to board breakers, Voiceless Voice as a deck just becomes way better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying my time with Voiceless Voice. A few nights ago, I didn't pre-order it. We here, you are in the Americas, but in Europe we pre-order cards. I don't know if you're aware of that concept. We pre-order the cards online. I talked to some American friends that I was like, do you pre-order cards? And they're like, no, not at all. Let's go to the sneak peek and get everything from the locals, right?
Yeah, I mean, over here, I'm very fortunate because I live in Los Angeles, and there's one place you can get all your Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It's a place called Frank & Sons Collectibles. It's like a giant warehouse, like a huge flea market with a bunch of other different like collectible stuff. But a huge part of it is like Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. So that's where you go to get it, and there's like 6 or 7 different vendors you can go to. So it's like a huge, think of it like if you went to a YCS and all the vendors are there.
I saw it in a lot of videos when people go to YCSs and they visit that store. They had like a lot of giant cards and stuff. So I was online a few days ago. I was like, Voiceless Voice. I didn't pick up the core, and then I played some games on stream. I was coping on branded Voiceless Voice. I was having such a good time with this deck. It felt incredible, really. It felt really incredible. Felt also like a pretty good matchup against Fire Kings.
Didn't play Gimmick Puppet.
And honestly, I picked up the core, and I've been testing it more and more and more, and it just feels great. Your camera froze for a second, but you're back.
I'm back.
Back,
I
baby.
saw my connection go down, and now I'm back.
So yeah, I definitely agree.
I heard everything you said.
Yeah,
so
I definitely agree about Voiceless Voice. The last thing I want to talk about before we move on to the next subject, Labyrinth is still an insane deck, but how does it pair up against the top contenders of the meta?
Well, it's an FDK if you go first. Like, you can just open these god hands where it is literally unlosable. It doesn't even... So, the problem with Labyrinth beforehand, like, it was a good deck in the metagame, but you would have to be a truly exceptional player to do it. This is like, pre-transaction rollback. But now that you've been handed rollback, you now just basically have a card that reads like auto win, because think of it like Big Welcome Labyrinth introducing a bunch of resources into the game. Now you're activating 2 branded fusions, if you want to like think about it like that, with transaction rollback. As a card. It lets you misplay with the deck, which is something that you weren't able to do prior.
Do over!
So it yeah, he's like, oh god, I went for the wrong thing with the book. Just activate it there. Oh, don't worry, I have another one in my graveyard to work with rollback. Really powerful deck. Still has the same Labyrinth problem, though, that it can't attack established fields, realistically. So that's why you gotta play, like, 12, 15 hand traps, like Peep Christian Urena's deck list. It's just like, it's Labyrinth cards and a bunch of hand traps, basically.
And just win the die roll. Don't be a loser. Just win the die roll.
Draw extra.
The next topic on the deck is the new strategies. We did want to shout out a few new strategies because we are also, we can be passionate about non-meta stuff. So you brought up one interesting strategy that we wanted to talk about. So why don't you kick us off with Flame Swordsman in Maze of Millennia?
Yeah, the cards read really interestingly because you have a guy that has a generically, like, when at sent to graveyard, do something that's already, like, really strong.
Best line in the game.
That is actually
literally the best line in the game.
Yeah. And then you have, on normal or special, add a Flame Swordsman card. So, like, generally, obviously, it's meant to synergize with Infernoble, of course. Is that deck going to be good? Probably not, with still the same, going second issues. But those cards are very interesting, and they're definitely one to keep in the back pocket for the future. The Flame Swordsman deck, it's more meant to be played as a bit of an engine that can give you some pops, give you some resources, some equip spells. So I looked through those cards. I even gave them a little bit of a whirl, and they are very interesting. Not for this format just yet, but keep them in the back pocket in the future if any more Fire Warrior support drops.
Yeah, I mean, Fire, it is the year of the Fire. They are Fire Warriors. Fire Warriors were a hot commodity just a couple months ago, probably. What do you think happened? Sorry. What do you think happened when the guys who designed the Flame Swordsman cards met the guys responsible for the ban list in the kitchen in the Konami offices, when they were like, yeah, so we're banning Isolde, right? So it's getting banned, right? And the Flame Swordsman's guys are like, damn, that sucks. That could have been a huge boost for combining maybe some of the Flame Swordsman with the Fire Warrior stuff, but alas, she's gone.
What about yours, Galzo? I think we all know what's coming out in Phantom Nightmare. More TCG exclusive stuff.
Yes, we are talking about more TCG exclusives. My new strategy for this week, or for this release cycle at least, I did want to talk about Ashen a bit. I think that Ashen, if you're not aware, listening this or watching this at home, Ashen is a new TCG exclusive archetype releasing in Phantom Nightmare. They have been teased in the original, like, one-pager that they released on the website. They were like, expect a new TCG exclusive archetype that works together with the card Bonfire that searches Pyro monsters in Maze of Millennia. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna, ram this additional $80 times 3 in your back pocket. Yes. So people were obviously very excited, right? Obviously, this gets people going. New Pyro archetype. What is it gonna be? And then we have the week of the reveals over on YouTube. And Billy Brake and Jerome McHale are like, this is the new Ashen archetype. They have a big video with flames and stuff, and they show the artwork, and then people starting to speculate. This is a Dark Souls inspired archetype. There are a lot of references to Elden Ring. I don't know if you played it. I made a video about it on my channel already. People are hyped. And then one day later, the cards drop, and we get to see the card text. And boy, oh boy, those cards are butt cheeks. To put it mildly, I think. So
Yeah,
I do want to be
Ashen cut the H.
yes,
You know?
I do want to be serious about this for a second. I know, and it's been like in all of my comments, all of Facebook, Twitter, whatever. The deck is getting more support. It is getting more support. You are absolutely correct. It will 100% get another wave or two, or maybe another additional one in the future. It's not complete, but I think it is completely unacceptable from a game design perspective to release an archetype like this that is unplayable out of the box. I have not found a single way to make this strategy cohesive. Maybe it's something to do with me. I've looked around, I've talked to a lot of people, but I think there is something that is so like not working within the cards that were released right now. But maybe you have something to counter at this point.
Yeah, so I mean, 100% I agree with you. These cards are unplayable. Like, it's a 2 to 3 card combo to, put up a board that is just
That does
a
nothing
single
though.
dark
It does
hole.
nothing.
Yeah. It's not good, but it has the makings of an actual good archetype, because it has a level 4 pyro that reads on summon, add a card. So that is already like, that is just any archetype, like rogue archetype, would kind of dream to have a card like that. Like, if Goaty had a card, I've spent so many tireless hours in the forge trying to make those cards work out. Please. They're close, man. All right, but thing aside, if any rogue archetype had a card that says on level 4 pyro or level 4 that can be rotated for on summon, add a card from the entire archetype from your deck to your hand, that is really strong. It also has their quick play spell, which if it was searchable would have been very nice.
Wait, but what about it
that
locking you into pyros from the extra deck? Or are you gonna summon
I
the
assume they
Nitro head, the Gold Pride Nitro head that requires 2 Gold Pride monsters?
Are there any other pyros or some like Laval synchro or something like
There's
that?
the
I think
Flame
there's one.
Banshee. There's the Flame Banshee. This is why people started to play this with Super Heavy, because it makes a free rank 4, searches for the Priestess, summon Priestess, get a field spell, make a board that does nothing because you're still locked to pyros from the extra deck. This is what really annoys me. Obviously, we're gonna get slapped in the face with like, a different wave of something that makes it playable, right? It's probably gonna happen. Who knows to what extent? But I feel like from the get-go, it is unacceptable to expect me to buy. I mean, I'm not buying potential. I personally am not buying potential. Not when the deck is so like, what am I supposed to do? Buy these cards, not touch them, and hope that the support actually makes it better? Because right now I can't put these cards in a deck. Even if they have potential, a lot of cards have potential.
Yeah. I'll say that, they just need to make one card that is worth searching with the, what is it? The
Priestess,
of the Ashen Priestess. Yeah. Just make one card that is worth searching, and then maybe it's functional if there's some sort of extra deck payoff again, because like, I don't like getting locked into pyros, but like, there is potential, and I mean, we kind of said the same thing about like Goaty, but the problem with Goaty is that it doesn't have a real starter, and couldn't actually like play through fields. These guys are actually like big attack monsters that can potentially go second. Vados is a hilarious card as well, that if we ever get into some weird format might actually become like a side deck tech. So versus like field spell
The
decks.
problem is you
Pop
put
Fire King Island, baby.
I know, and give them a monster and Garunix effect and make a freaking Promethean princess and you're still dead.
Whoa. But Fire King Island, so you summon it. Okay, how you would do this is when they summon Flamberge to their field and they activate Fire King Island, you chain Vados, target the island, summon it to their field. Island nukes their own field, and then it's Island.
It's
nukes their own
Flameburge
field.
1, you are chain
Vados
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're chain
Ass.
2. Never mind.
Yeah.
Garbage.
Ass. Moving on. I
Moving
really
on.
hope
Funny
that we
tech.
see
Funny
more.
tech over.
I hope that we see more of this. It is very promising, in my opinion. There is a lot of promise there. The art style is
unplayable.
amazing. The story, I think it is unacceptable to release cards that are unplayable in their current state. No, not all decks need to be tier 1, but this is not tier 5. Moving on. The next topic, we are in tech check. The text, the secret. This is what I really like. I really like going into the OCG lists, fighting out some cool stuff, watching replays, and figuring out what players are actually playing. Because I think that in the last few formats, we have been in a deck building format because a lot of the decks are like, you have the cookie cutter list, and it's the very, very unique text that people bring into event that actually make a difference, and also make a difference between like the experienced pros that will go on for hours in looking for the perfect tech, and people who just. I think net decking is amazing, but I think this is where you bring in your personal spice into it, and I absolutely love this. So, what do we have on the table here?
For me, I want to take the card The Black Goat Laughs. And it's not just good in Labyrinth, aka Rumpel Teufel. I should actually read off the card for those who don't know exactly how this card reads. Let me just pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a normal trap card that reads, you declare one monster name. This is its activated trap card effect. It also has a graveyard effect. Neither player can special summon monsters with that original name for the rest of the turn, except from the graveyard. So a really interesting, like, sales ban, floodgate type effect, which is pretty interesting. And then it has a graveyard effect that almost mirrors the first effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard and declare one monster name. Neither player can activate the effects of monsters on the field with that name. You can only use one of these effects per turn. I really like this card. It has a variety of applications, not just inside of Labyrinth. Many people have just been saying, "Oh, we're just gonna do this, discard it off some furniture, call it a day." I'm gonna banish this, sales ban a card on your field, and things like that. But it has a lot of other applications, specifically in fire decks, in my opinion. For one, if you get hit with Dimension Shifter, you can just go thrust, set this from the deck, and you probably can just live. You can call something like Rabina, if that's funny, or you could call Kashtira Unicorn. Excuse me, you can't call Rabina with the main effect because they normal summon, they don't special summon. But you can call Kashtira Unicorn. So that's why the card's a little bit awkward, but you can call Kashtira Unicorn.
Yeah.
With that, so that will guarantee that you live that turn through a Dimension Shifter, which is very nice to have. And also, you can discard it off of your card, specifically like Black Witch. Some people are playing Forbidden Droplet, if you want to do that, to also break a field. So it's a card that has a lot of other experimentation. So if you play a deck with a lot of discard outlets, not just Labyrinth, but even these Snake Eye decks, you're playing Horus cards.
Yeah, even Tearlament.
Yeah,
you mill that. It's really good to mill.
So it's a very interesting card that doesn't need to just exist within Labyrinth. So something that's cool to find and try to beat, Dimension Shifter or just attack fields with.
Yeah. Super, super cool. Has the Aluber mask on the art, so, we must play that. I think it's a very, very cool card. I've been hit with this a few times now, and let me tell you, it's not always fun. This is definitely something that will see play in like one copy a deck, as you mentioned, like a thrust target. I'm gonna mill it and activate it. It's completely free. I think decks like Tearlaments as well are really gonna benefit from all those rollback and the goat, those cards can
Beatrice
actually
stuff.
Beatrice stuff, just milling stuff, Needlebug Nest. We saw all of that already. My small tech of the week, because we're going towards the end, we're running out of time. But I do want to mention something that I've been playing specifically in Fire King, which is not super unique, but I did want to highlight Dramatic Snake Eye Chase. So this is a common releasing in Phantom Nightmare. It's a quick play Snake Eye card, so it is searchable by Snake Eye Poplar. And what it does is places the Bellstar monster from your graveyard or deck, I believe, to the spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. But it also has an effect during the end phase in the graveyard, where you can banish it and special summon one of your monsters that is considered a continuous spell. So what it essentially allows Fire King players to do now is that they no longer have to end on the Flameberg Dragon. And I think that, of course, if you're playing around Nib, it's always good to have it on the field, but the time you get to the point where you activate its effect to place the monster, and when you try to end your main phase to go to the end phase, sometimes you will be stopped and you will need to extend with the Flameberg. And it's really, really bad when you are looking at the IP Masquerena in your spell and trap zone and you're like, sorry, buddy, I have to let you go because I need to link off my Flameberg. Otherwise, I'm stuck with Princess and everything sucks immediately. So I've been testing it a little bit. Another cool package that I started seeing is playing like a weird ass package of Sky Striker, a small Sky Striker engine, Magician Souls, and Where Art Thou in Fire King. It has a lot of like weird synergy with Kagari being a fire monster, the Hornet Drones token being a level 1, a lot of like weird stuff, and Where Art Thou, of course, adding you a level 1 when you already have a level 1, which the deck is pretty much full of. The fact that Poplar can just special summon itself when it's added means that this card becomes special summoned from the deck if you're in a pinch. So a few interesting choices, more towards Fire King players, but next time I'll try to get them more generic. And we're moving on to our last segment, basically, which is the Rogue Radar. We have a few events that we're going to talk about at the end of the video and at the end of the show. Upcoming events that we think are going to be... I'm really looking forward to them. But before that, we do want to wager on what will be the rogue picks that will actually, make it. Now, with the pie charts looking like a pizza, it's kind of hard because there will be some, rogue decks that sneak in. But what do we feel is kind of on our radar?
So what do you want as like rogue? Because if I call like Despia rogue, how many people will make that like be angry about that?
You will be banned immediately from the game. Do you really think it's rogue though?
No, Despia is not rogue. It'll be a very highly represented deck.
Yeah.
At this kind of event. What is out there that is like I want to like take something that's from the bottom of the list, because there's a lot of like I would call underdogs, but you wouldn't necessarily say that is rogue specifically. I think a lot of, if you're playing a shifter deck, I'll put it on like shifter decks, and believe it or not, there's a minuscule chance that I think Tearlaments with the right builds and ideas, and with how the format shapes up, where people are kind of split between hand traps and board breakers right now. I don't think the universal consensus is we're all playing 15 hand traps. I think Tearlaments becomes a very interesting deck choice. Of course, without any shufflers, it's very hard to just like get some free auto wins. You're gonna have to work a lot for your win. But I think Tearlaments is probably one of my biggest like shout outs as a rogue contender.
Tearlaments as a rogue contender. Is it really rogue in your opinion? I feel like Tearlaments is top 4 of the format. It's been showing. It just won a huge regional. And with the Horus cards and everything, it doesn't have millers, but it's still extremely resilient. The problem is I haven't really tested it in the context of Fire King, so I'm not really sure. But Tearlaments being rogue, that's interesting. I'll take it. I'll take it. But I wonder where your thoughts are in terms of like tier being rogue specifically.
Like I know the person who won that regional, by the way. It's Felix Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer. I think he won. Yeah, it was a German Open actually. If I'm incorrect.
It actually took down a few tournaments, first place. Like during the last few weeks. Obviously, we're not still in Phantom 9 format, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like the thing is it's just getting power crept by like I guess like tier limits 2. I almost want to think of it like with fire, but it has some other things that work in its favor with the rollback cards specifically. So I think there are still some.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely not a top pick for this tournament, considering Dimension Shifter. There's a lot of hate, but an established board probably just wins.
Yeah. I think my shout out is going to go to Mekanko, honestly. I think that we've seen some iteration of Mekanko with, before the Forbidden Limited list, with, just like Fire Warrior combos, FTK, stuff like that. I'm just talking about the Mekanko end board, and people are under the assumption that you need to be, like, going second with Mekanko because the win con is just inflicting back the damage to your opponent. It is very resilient to hand traps, to ward breakers, and it runs a few engines as well. Like you have the Dogmatica engine that actually searches you. You don't actually summon from the extra deck, meaning that the best out to any situation being Typhon right here, it doesn't apply in this matchup. And you are, at the end of the day, staring down a Huli that cannot be targeted, cannot be destroyed, has the whole field protected, and you just stare at it in a lot of different decks and just say, what the hell do I do? I think that like Mirror Jade is one of the magical outs, but again, with the trap setup, negating stuff, taking stuff off of your board. I tried playing, I remember playing with Tyr going up against this deck. It was just insane. I felt flabbergasted by what they'd done to me. So I think that Mekanko is going to be my rogue pick for the next couple weeks. I really hope that we don't see it because I think it's a toxic ass deck. But if we did, then I am correct and I get the points and I win everything. So yeah, we are coming to the end of the first episode of the first show. Let's talk about the events to be at, the big event talk, in which we want to talk about a few upcoming events and releases. Just to wrap everything up, to bring everyone up to speed, we have the Team YCS in San Jose, February 17th. This is with Phantom Nightmare Legal. This is the first big premiere event with Phantom Nightmare.
Wait, hold on. I need to interrupt you there. What about the UDS tournament with 16 players? That is probably the biggest tournament. That is probably the most hyped tournament in the last few years of Yu-Gi-Oh! That is the 16th of February.
It is before. I was wondering about that. Are they playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's just like Edison. What are they playing? Edison?
I don't know. There's like champions there from 6 years ago. Do they still play the game? I don't know.
I assume they all accepted their invites.
So that's gonna be insane. So that's gonna be actually insane. So if you guys at home are not aware, the UDS was sort of like a championship series that predated YCS's. It's called the Ultimate Duelist Series, I think, something like that. And it has a lot of big name, champions there. Jeff Jones, PRJ, I believe, Andres Torres, Jesse Cotton. A lot of big name champions, and now they have like the All-Stars on the 16th, basically taking them all together up against one another. That will be extremely interesting, I think. The best duelists on the planet. Post Phantom Nightmare. If they do play just normal ass Yu-Gi-Oh, that's going to be insane. I'm hoping that they're not going to do any shenanigans of changing it up, making it like a mixed format or something. I don't know. So we have that. And we also have the San Jose, of course, YCS. We have Battles of Legend Chapter 1, which is a new set release. It's coming out on February 22nd. This is going to be the next set in the OCG, even though it's not a core set. It is basically a reprint set, shouldn't have any impact. And then we have the Team YCS in Las Vegas, which Fi is going to be at. So good luck to you. I hope you basically need to win the whole event, or everything that we said here doesn't count.
The ratings are going to be through the floor.
Yes.
Because after I lose out.
No. You will win. I know that you will. That's February 24th, 25. Excited?
I mean, absolutely. It's still a lot more work to be done, but yeah, 20 days until I have to submit a deck list and also get my like technical play up as well. But I think like, you know, I have the capabilities to I wouldn't say like, I'm not gonna go as far to say win the event, but do well for sure. So looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, this is why you guys are listening to the show, because you know he's got you want to hear what he says, and maybe
YCS
me sometimes.
Topping podcast co-host.
Yeah, national winning, YCS topping. We need both of them. We need both rings. If somebody approaches you to sign a card, what card do you want that to be?
Ooh, what card do I want that to be?
You know that's gonna happen probably. Scattershot?
I want that to be volcanic. I want that to be volcanic scattershot. Not for time. Well, not for time, but for like actually resolving the second good effect of scattershot. I hope people are banishing Blaze Accelerator Reload from their graveyards and sending volcanic scattershot to the graveyard.
Based. So guys, if you see Fi walking around, get your scattershot out of your side deck and your Telements deck, and make sure to grab a Sharpie and catch him. Fi, where can the people find you?
Well, they can find me at youtube.com/FiYugiO, as well as you can do the same thing, but for, I'm not going to say X, twitter.com/FiYugiO as well. You can check me out there. You'll probably get my tournament report. Occasionally you'll see a bad meme or me just reacting, posting some takes here and there. But mostly I'm making another huge video on the YouTube channel. Hopefully that'll be out in the next week. It'll be a very awesome video, but I'm not going to leak what it's about because that would ruin the surprise.
Yes. So again, thank you so much. I had a blast this first episode. I feel like it's vibing. I really enjoyed my time.
Great.
I hope you guys enjoyed as well. If you did, make sure to subscribe, turn on the bell, because there's going to be more episode. I want you guys in the comments below to tell us what topics do you want us to discuss next time. And of course, give us any feedback on our first ever show. This is really exciting. We are recording this live on my Twitch channel, so make sure you check it out over there so you can catch us live and be a part of the show like these beautiful people here on the chat. Say hi, YouTube, and bye, YouTube. We'll see you in the next episode of Table Zero. Take care. Peace.
Peace out.